Looks like we're live. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to bring my dear friend, Sarah, uh, to you as my guest today. She is a restaurant consultant and owner of Your White Night. She has been in the industry for almost 20 years and is very passionate about all things service industry. She's taken that love of serving people into a new direction this year and announced her campaign for state delegate, where she will bring common sense and kindness to the political sphere, which I just can't wait to see her do because we so need kindness in this world and especially in the political world. All right, Sarah?
That's absolutely true. You see a lot of the ugliness going back and forth. I would like to highlight all of the great work that people can do together when they work together and let the other things go.
Amen to that. So tell us a little bit more about you. I mean, I just kind of gave you, a little bit of introduction. Tell us like who is Sarah, and like kind of give us a little bit of a glimpse into your personal life as well.
Well, you nailed the highlights. So thank you so much for that great introduction. I have been working in the restaurant industry for many, many years. You may know some of the cafes that I work with, which would be 3 out of 5 of the Lost Dog cafes and Cowboy Cafe in Arlington, who that's my home, my passion. I love my group of restaurants and I'm very fortunate to get to work with them. But I also have seen a need for restaurant consulting in the area, especially considering the last year that we had. And I have a knack for being able to help people get more money through the door, retain more of that money, know where to put it towards staff, toward purchasing, whatever that happens to be. So if you've ever seen any of the restaurant rescue or bar shows, then you kind of know what I do. But I like to come in with a kind of a quiet approach and see what you're currently doing, talk to you about what you do well and what you think you can improve upon, and then let's come up with a plan. I have been doing this for very low prices to free this year just to keep people alive, because let's be realistic, nobody could afford a consultant for a restaurant this year. The people that needed it most were not going to be able to add that to the budget in the year that we've had. So it's been a lot of fun, and you personally have set me up with several people to talk over plans and what we can do for their restaurants. And I'm very fortunate to get to work with so many wonderful people and help them keep their dream alive and keep their staff employed. So that's been a lot of fun this year. And then, like you said, I decided that I was bailing out a ship with a teaspoon by arguing for policy that nobody understood, and we couldn't get the rules that we needed, and things were coming out that made no sense or were detrimental. And so I decided that I would put down my teaspoon and decide to pull out a seat at the table. So let's have this discussion. I'm going to run this year. We're going to talk about some issues, get them out on the table, and see what we can do for our local businesses.
Fantastic. So can you tell me kind of how do you remember that moment when that idea of from going to a restaurant manager and running several restaurants, how did you kind of decide to jump into the consulting world?
It's funny because it was never really a decision. I don't really remember making the decision. I just remember setting our restaurants up to be franchisable, mostly so that one restaurant would be like the next, like the next. There's 5 Lost Dog cafes and we wanted them all to be uniform. I want you to have the same great pizza, whichever one you go into. So I had a lot of fun working with Austin Garcia, a friend of mine who works for Lost Dog Cafe. He's chief operations officer for the whole operation. And he and I did some fantastic work along with owner Pam McCowie to set everything up the way that we wanted it. And I just thought, this is fun. This isn't work anymore. They pay me to do this. This is fantastic. So that's what made it natural to talk to the next friend who needed me and say, okay, well, let's look through this together. And then a friend said, hey, my parents are thinking about buying this restaurant and I'm not sure what they're getting into. Would you mind looking through it with them? Well, yes, of course I will. And I was just having so much fun that it rolled into its own thing.
That's fantastic. Yes, you do have a big heart, and I think people just I can see how people can just come to you and you would say, sure, I'll help you. I mean, I've seen you do this with all types of businesses, not just restaurant business. So what was, now take us to that moment where you decided to run for political office. I mean, that's not a like a just sort of like you wake up one day and you just said, "Oh, I'll become a politician," kind of thing.
That was a very clear decision. That was a lot of long nights thinking about it and what do I do next. But at the end of the day, I walked past a napkin in the floor at the restaurant and I think somebody should pick that up. I know nobody will pick it up. Like it's everybody will assume somebody should pick it up. So you do it, and all of our employees I know would take the time to do that. I would do that. And why do we not take that same perspective to politics? I was looking at it and going, somebody should run. This is insane. We don't have the voice that we need. We're not getting the things that we need. Somebody needs to run. And I was just walking past the mirror after just saying that sentence to my husband. And I thought, oh, I'm somebody, and this is just like the restaurant. This is just like stepping over a broom. You don't do it. If you want somebody to run, don't wait for somebody. Or if you're not the candidate type, you're not the one that wants to step up there and put yourself out there, find somebody to run. But if you just wait for someone to magically appear, it doesn't really happen that way. So I was very excited to sit back down with my husband and say, okay, what about this? And so, we thought long and hard about it. It was, a good solid month of talking to friends and family and saying, what do you think? And so many people in my life said, oh, I didn't think of that, but I love it. That would be amazing. You should do that. You'd be great for it. And I just, with that kind of support behind me, it was time to make a leap.
Gotcha. And when was it? When did you decide to actually run? Because I think it was just fairly recently, right?
It was around December that we finally said, okay, we're going to do this.
Fantastic. So what are some things that you really want to address as someone who, as your napkin, so to speak, right? What are the
I like that.
What are the napkins that you're gonna pick up, in this?
Oh, I love that you put that way. So, a big issue for us right now is the rules still aren't particularly clear. We have new mandates coming out often on Fridays at 5 o'clock. They take effect on Monday, and guess who we can't call all weekend? And we may not understand it. So I want to see rules come out that we understand, because all we want to do is keep people safe. We want to follow the rules. We want to do things right. So make sure that the rules make sense and actually keep people safe. If you're going to put a rule in place, it can't be arbitrary. If you're going to take away freedoms from our people and restrict their movement, restrict their businesses, you have to have clear data as to why, and convince them. We've all argued with a teenager once in a while, and you don't win that often out of stubbornness. But if you can make that really valid point, if you can get that, and that's what the public is. They're just looking for that valid point. Oh, that's why we're doing this. Okay, I see, and I will comply with that, because we naturally rebel against having our freedoms taken away. We're Americans. That's what we do. So it's just making sure that we're all on the same page about why we're doing this, what we're doing, a timeline for when we're going to reevaluate and see if this did work or if we should go in another direction. And then that's your first napkin. So from moving on, I'm going to talk about education. Our children, you have a daughter who's so excited to get back to school, and we want our children in school where they can socialize and learn things and keep up on education and all these world full of things that have stopped. They've stopped. And we're very fortunate that we live in Northern Virginia, where some mothers can stay home. Some families can afford to hire someone to teach their children, but that's not everybody. That's not everybody's experience. And we have children that are falling behind. So let's get them in school first. We're pretty much doing that. We're on a good path for that. That's great. But what are we going to do to catch up on education? You can't just ignore it. We can't just act like the last year didn't happen or assume that everybody kept up the way that they were supposed to, because many didn't through no fault of their own. So how are we going to make that plan? And then lastly, I would say, how are we going to prevent this from ever happening again? It's one thing, in the restaurant, we do it all the time. We have a terrible night. We've all had this happen. You order food and it doesn't show up for an hour and a half. You were told it'd be there in 45 minutes. Something just went really wrong. If we don't stop as a restaurant and say, okay, so here's what we did right, here's what we did wrong, and next weekend we are not going to have that happen again, then we
Mhm.
didn't really solve a problem. We're setting ourselves up to fail. So how can we do that as a government and as a people and say, okay, this is what we did great, this is what we did not do great, and next time we're going to do this better. We're going to not fail our children when it comes down to it, because this won't be the last thing Virginia ever faces. Let's be realistic. Whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's, you always have to be prepared for something. We pray that it never comes, but when it does, you want to be ready and we want to live up to the challenge. So those are going to be my really big issues.
That's fantastic. Yes, and I wanted to ask you, how, I guess, how are people, who are you looking to connect with right now, and how can we help you, um, reach those people? How can we support you? I'm gonna definitely, I'll be putting your information in the comments on Facebook, and then this will end up on YouTube eventually, and I'll also put links there. But tell us, what are some ways that people can get involved, in your campaign? How can we support you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate that. So first, by learning something about me, whether that's going to my website, Sarah with an H, the number 4va.com, go there and learn something about me. There's a contact email. I answer that contact email. It looks like I have people. That's me. You get me. My cell phone number is out there. I'm pretty easy to find on social media. Whatever works for you, get to know who I am, because I really want that to be the basis of our relationship. I don't want it to revolve around a single political issue. I want it to be a relationship with each other that you trust and you understand where I'm coming from. And that's important to me. So that would be step one. Step two, sign up for the newsletter. If you go on the website, I write those emails every week that go out. So you get to hear what I'm talking about. If you have something that you want me to address, hit me up. I love to get inspired by constituents saying, this is something that's bothering me this week, or how do you feel about this? Where should we go with this? And just talk through those ideas. And then that becomes the newsletter next week. So if you want to really have an impact, let's have a conversation. Money is always important to a campaign. How else are you going to get your name really out there? And I'm doing everything that I can in person right now, or in person, in Zoom right now. A little bit of both, but we all know how that is. But
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of, can I mail something to someone's house? Can I knock on their door? Well, I don't want to knock on a lot of doors right now until I feel more comfortable with that. And people can step outside their house and talk to me. I don't want you to freeze to learn what I have to say. I don't want to put somebody out to do that. So how can I get in front of as many people as possible? Well, it could be mailers. It could be interviews like this. It could be having a small group of people that you're willing to introduce me to and talk to. And a lot of that takes funding. So if you are compelled and want to do that, that's always appreciated. And then, like I said, with that amount is introductions, any introductions.
Fantastic. Yes, and I will, like I said, I will provide the links on Facebook and YouTube, and for ways to reach you as well. Now, a question about your restaurant business. I mean, you're planning on continuing, your consulting business, right, with the restaurants.
Yes.
And what are the best, I guess, who are the best candidates for you to help, and how can you help restaurants? Because as we all know, the past year has been very, very difficult. Let's just say, let's say it lightly, right?
Right.
For restaurants. And you have worked with a couple of my, friends, and have helped them tremendously. They've had really positive feedback about, what you've been able to do, and how efficient you are, and how quick you are, and how much you know about this, the industry, and how much you care about each and every person. And, so who would who are you best, fitted to help? And then, how should they reach out? I mean, I understand, maybe there's a different way that they can reach out to you as well.
Absolutely. So if it's restaurant related, you can always go to your-white-night.com, and that's going to be my restaurant website. Sarah at Your White Night, spelled the exact same way, is going to be the email for that. You're going to get directly to me. So people that I can help are going to be really any restaurateur at any stage in their business. It's just going to be different help depending on where you are. So if you're opening a new business, let's get you started on the right foot. Let's make sure that you open with a solid game plan and financial structure to make sure that your dream just flourishes and becomes everything that you wanted it to be. Let's set you up. Let's open the first one as if you're going to open 15 more after it. Let's make sure that it's that neat and clean and ready to just go to the next one if you want to do that. If you already have a business, maybe it's newer or maybe it struggled through COVID, then let's sit down and look at the books. Let's talk about where your money's going, where we could focus your money, and how to allocate things through the store. Let's also talk about training your staff. Let's make sure that there are things set in place the way that you want them to be. As an owner, you don't want to live at the restaurant. This is your dream and you love it and you love being there, but you don't want to live there. So let's set it up to be so efficient that you don't have to live there. I like the surprise visits. I like when they don't know that you or I are coming. And so you get an exact picture of what it looks like, and you walk in and you're so proud of everybody because they're doing exactly what needs to be done, and they're running your store. So how can we set that up for you? How can we make sure that that happens? And then if you're established and maybe you're thinking about opening a second or third or fourth location, how can we make that seamless for you? How can we make the experience of someone coming to one versus coming to another? They're going to have their favorite store. Let's be realistic. Everybody has their home store. But how can we make sure that the food and the service is just as good and they're just as happy to eat at any of your locations? So really anything along the spectrum. Maybe you have 15 stores and they've kind of gotten away from you and you need to get back to the basics and get back to making sure that they run well. We can do that. Having worked at some of the biggest chains and having worked at some of the smaller restaurants gives me a broad perspective on what we might be able to do. The only thing I'm going to need from you is open-mindedness. The only time that this is going to fail is when I bring you things that, and you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to do, I'm not on TV. You don't have to do everything I bring in. I'm not going to throw anything. I'm not going to yell. There's not going to be a scene. But if you don't want to do any of the things that we're talking about, regardless of the data I give you, it's not going to be a good relationship for either of us. It's not going to help you, and it will be a waste of your money. So if you're going to bring me in, make sure that you're ready to think outside the box and do some of the work that we're talking about.
Fantastic. I just, had a thought about, what are you limited by location? Like, can you help people? I know that you're in Falls Church, physically, and, anywhere in the DC area, pretty much, right? But are you limited? Could you help somebody out in Washington State or California? How, what's your plan? I guess long-term plan for your.
Well, and I love that question because I have helped people in South Carolina, in outside of Boston, up in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I've talked to a restaurant group in New York and Indiana. I've worked with people all over the place. And I love that. That's one of the highlights of this past year. We might have had a lot of downside, but Zoom is so prevalent that we can jump. You can give me a tour of your restaurant. We can walk through it together and you can take me right along. I've been known to jump up and drive to wherever it is to say, okay, we just need to see this in person. So it definitely happens. I just want to help you with your restaurant. So whatever that looks like to you, let me know and we'll work with it. We'll make it happen.
Fantastic. That's a great thing to know for everybody out there. Now, before we close, I want to keep it, short and sweet, and at the same time give people as much information as possible. So what advice would you give to somebody? And I understand, there are a lot of restaurants out there, but if you're talking to a restaurant owner in this time, right, in the pandemic, I know like Maryland is lifting their occupancy, limitations and things like that. But if you're in a restaurant business right now and at this time, what advice would you give somebody who is a restaurant owner?
Absolutely. So the one thing that I would tell you, whether it's pandemic, whether it's not pandemic, like this is just universal advice that I've always lived by, is the people are what matter. You know, whether that's politics, restaurants, it doesn't matter what it is. People are what matter. So hire the right people, train them, give them all the love they need to be the best for you. You know, we used to have a joke in my restaurant, and I would say, "Hey, what's your job?" And they'd say, "To make you look good." I said, "That's right." And like, you know, I didn't have to micromanage them at that point. Like, I didn't have to, they know their job. They don't need me to show them how to make a sandwich or make a pizza. They know that I'm proud of them and the work that they're doing. And if they keep that up, then the restaurant will take care of itself. I don't have to micromanage. So having the right managers, you know, I love my manager meetings every week, and we talk about, you know, what were some of the wins that we had with our staff this week, and we come up with our plan for next week. We have a big challenge coming up here soon that we're trading out our management staff between our locations. Everybody's going to play on a team that they don't normally play on for a week. And we're doing that, and we're doing some metrics, you know, whose staff has the best feedback every night, whose reviews are the best for the week, whose food cost looks perfect for the week. So we're making it fun, we're making it a challenge, but I trust them that I can move them to a new location and they will be just as awesome at each location that they go to. So it's all about the people. If you don't have the right people, train them up, coach them out, whatever it takes to make sure that you don't want unhappy people, and that will just lead to an unhappy atmosphere in your store for your guests. So what can you do to take care of your family? And restaurants, we are a family.
That's right. So I've actually spoken with a couple of your teammates, and they are just, I mean, they love you. They just absolutely love you. And I mean, I think the fact that you do really care about people, that's the key in, I think, in every business out there, in every situation, right? You, as long as you take care of the people will take care of your customers.
Right. That's always been the thing, you know, as I moved up in stages, because of course I started out busing and hosting and serving and bartending and working on the line. And it was each step that I took in management. You know, when I was the service manager, the service team was mine. And then when you move up to general manager, those managers that take service, bar, back of house, that's your team. And it's remembering to empower them to do their job. Don't do it for them. You're not helping either of you. And that's what helps our owners step away from the restaurant. Get your team, train them how you want things done, and then let them own it for you.
That's fantastic advice. So to close this out, what are you most excited about this coming year?
Oh, that is a great question. So I have to, looking out the window at the beautiful weather, I have to say, I am just thankful for the little things, and the weather this year getting pretty is what I am most looking forward to. Being outside, seeing our friends again, hugs. I never ever thought, and I'm not particularly huggy to be honest, but I've never missed hugs so much in my life. So I think it's the little things this year that we've really been reminded are important.
That's so true. Yes, we can't wait to see more people in person. It's been fantastic to run a business online, for on my end, and I love saving time on commute. And but then of course that takes money away from restaurants. So then we do order out, so to make sure that we're still supporting our local restaurants. And Lost Dog, oh my gosh, you guys, if you haven't tried it, please do. Veggie chili is my absolute favorite, and I'm not a vegetarian, but I just love that. That's my, I'm not a huge sandwich person, but that veggie chili is to die for. And their staff, Sarah's staff is absolutely, fantastic. So thank you so much, Sarah, for being my guest today. I'm so glad that we finally were able to have this conversation, and for you to share your story. And Sarah deserves all the support you guys can give her. I'm introducing her. When I introduce her by email, I always tell people that please meet the new president of the future president of the United States. And that's what I'm going to say, Sarah for president. So we have a female vice president now, and president is the next step.
Hey, the ladies are moving on up.
Exactly. And you know, this is US history, Women's History Month,
Yep.
right? This month. So I'm especially excited that we're doing this interview today and, you know, in March. So thank you so much, Sarah. And do you have any parting words for our friends, for our guests?
Hey, I have to say it, is that if you like the way my eyes look now, hit up Olia. She has been fantastic at making me Zoom ready. So definitely reach out to Olia and ask what I did for my eyes.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. You're amazing. Thank you again. Thank you guys for tuning in and for your support. We're gonna say goodbye for now, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.